Hello, this is Les Moir. I just welcome you to our next session in Inspiring Songwriters. And our special guest today is Graham Kendrick.
Hi.
Graham, we're so many years together,
Oh.
so many studio hours,
Yes.
so many songwriting sessions. But it's great we can be together and just to really, and we're going to say pass on of what we've learned and hopefully inspire many today. But the story I was thinking about was about your wife Jill, and she had she had someone was doing some work in your house, and they said to Jill, "So what does your husband do?" And Jill replied, "Oh, he's a modern hymn writer." and so I wondered what you thought about that.
The modern or the hymn writer?
Both, the combination, the contemporary, yeah.
Both together. Yeah, definitely. There's some truth in that. It depends how you conceive of it.
Yeah.
You know, some people only think of dusty hymns on organs. I remember being interviewed once, and they came along and said, "Oh, can we start by interviewing you at the organ?" Because they'd been told I was a hymn writer. In fact, I don't play the organ at all, the guitar. But yeah, I think that's what emerged when I kind of moved from being a singer-songwriter to writing songs for the church. What emerged, I think, reflected my background in the hymns,
Yes.
but also my exposure to all the contemporary music and the modern music, if you like, and it came out as a bit of a synthesis of the two. And I think songs like The Servant King or Beauty for Brokenness or Meekness and Majesty definitely fit that sort of hymn title.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that phrase. I think that you said in a book that your biggest influences were the Baptist hymn book and the Beatles.
And the Beatles, yes.
Yeah.
I think.
And it was just seeing that contemporary hymn come together, isn't it?
Yeah.
But what we also wanted to talk about today was just the uniqueness of the songs from the UK.
Okay.
So as I say, we've been talking about songs from the soil. And there was definitely in the UK a heritage of hymns. Do you know what I mean? We've come from that, haven't we? And quite an amazing situation, where hymns are sung in football stadiums, do you know what I mean? Or big gatherings, or hymns are sung in school assemblies. And so we grew up, knowing these songs and these truths. But what I've loved about your writing, Graham, is really, the songs of content, as our friend John Pack would say, songs of substance. And just your dedication to having the truth in song. And I just wonder if you just share a bit more about that and your heart for that.
That definitely came out of the soil that I
Yes.
grew up in,
Yeah.
which was my father was a pastor, so I'd listen to his preaching week after week. Didn't have a choice, but it was going in, you know, and in an era where Bible teaching was highly regarded, and the Bible was very highly regarded. I remember as a kid having to do what they call the scripture exam.
Yes.
You had to memorize scriptures and then write them down, but you had to get everything right, even the punctuation right, and that sort of gave me a sense of this is really important. The comma has got to be there, because it changes the meaning.
Yes.
So there was that rich heritage in the UK.
Yes.
And I think I had a passion anyway for the kind of story element in songs. So much of my early songwriting was telling stories through songs. When I was a student at college, that's where I began to really develop that side of telling. A lot of them were Bible stories, just turned into a kind of cameo in a song. So the content was always really important to me. So I think it flowed out of that soil, if you like.
Yeah.
But I did have to learn. I remember a point at which, because my identity, if you like, my self-image was I'm a singer-songwriter. I do concerts, the lights go down, and I sing get my acoustic guitar and sing these deep, meaningful songs and so on. And then I find myself in this new worship, there's new ways of worship arising.
Yes.
Not that it was about worship constantly, consciously. It was about God was just doing a new renewal in the church.
Yes.
And that, as renewals do, they overflow in worship.
Beautiful.
So my generation wanted to sing out of that move of God.
Yes.
But I can remember realizing that I had to learn a new set of criteria for a song that a congregation could sing, as opposed to if I make up a song and I can sing it, it can be whatever, the range can be whatever I like, or the vocabulary can be whatever works for me. But suddenly it's okay, this crowd of people, all different backgrounds and ages and abilities, musical, non-musical, they've all got to be able to join in this thing. So what makes that work? And that was a very conscious decision.
Yeah. I remember you telling me that you were part of the In the Name of Jesus team, which was like a new situation, wasn't it? It was like almost like a missionary team, and then you were part of that, and your first worship songs, were they written for those group of people?
Yes, we formed a team, and we would help local churches do a mission. So maybe, or a group of local churches. So we go to a town for a couple of weeks or something, and we would help. We go into schools or colleges or whatever was necessary to sort of help the churches reach out and share the faith with other people. But as a team, there was about 10 or so of us. The numbers changed here or there. So we were like a little traveling church, you know, because we had our own prayer times and so on, and our own ups and downs, our own relational challenges and different strong personalities and all this sort of thing. So yes, that was where that first writing began. I remember, for example, one of the team was going through a bit of a difficult time, and so I wrote a song for them, which I sang in our little 10 people meeting, you know, and hopefully it helped, you know.
Yes.
And I remember the seeds of probably the first of my songs that began to get on the grapevine and travel. We were at a particular point where the stresses of what we were doing were really showing in our relationships, and so, you know, we'd be gathering around and say that we need to pray because the meeting starts in 20 minutes or something like that, and there'd just be silence. You know, it'd be like awkward silence.
Yeah.
Like, I know we all know that this person and that person, or this couple and that person, are not getting on. Yeah. And in the middle of that awkwardness, I remember thinking, I don't know where it came from, but there's an old hymn which is "Jesus Stand Among Us," and I don't know whether it had anything to do with that, but these words started to form. Jesus stand among us in the meeting of our lives, you know, be our sweet agreement at the meeting of our eyes. Yeah. You know, we've got to be able to look each other in the eye and say, yes, we have peace. So quite quickly, I just made up a little song to that. Not on the spot, but next time we met, I was able to say, oh, perhaps this song might help us. And it did, because it helped us all to get the focus back on Jesus, not on what we were falling out over. But then, we'd use that song in the churches we go to, because it became, you know, you visit other churches, you discover, oh, actually this kind of thing is going on everywhere. So we, you know, and then it began to get passed by word of mouth to other groups. And, you know, then I came across a recording of it from New Zealand or something, you know. But it was grapevine. Yes. You know, and the big technology of the day to spread songs was the overhead projector.
There you go.
Because, you know, previously there'd be a new edition of a hymn book every 25 years. Yeah. But suddenly, in the time it took you to write out the words of a song on a sheet of acetate, you could slap it on over, and there it was, you could sing it. Yeah.
Great story. But what I was thinking about, we've really been trying to encourage people to write songs for their group. You know, not to worry, not just, you know, try and write a massive song. You just write songs about where you are, about what God is doing. You know, you're in a group of 10 people, Graham, and then you wrote a song for them, and then God used that around the world, you just see. But you know, I think those are really the most poignant songs. And our friend, you know, he has this phrase that people sing their own songs the loudest.
Yeah.
Do you mean it? It's so right for your congregation. You know, don't write to try and be number one CCLI song. Just write about what God is doing, and He will bless that. He'll take it, you know, surprise you often by what He does. And yeah, I was just going to tell you this story, Graham, about our friends in Bradford.
Okay.
At Life Church, and they had a lady who came to church every Sunday on a mattress, and but over weeks and months, the Lord healed her, and she actually got up and danced in church, and which was really amazing, a miracle. And so the guys wrote this song called "Dance Again," and so when we went to record their album, you know, the first 4 songs went fine, but then when they hit "Dance Again," the church was singing 5 times louder.
Okay.
Because it was their song, and it was their story. And so what we've been doing is we've been encouraging songwriters to write about what God is doing in their midst. Even for you, a group of 10 people, just write about the circle that you're in, the situation, what God is doing, and then leave God to do the rest. Yes. Where the song is going to go. But what I've loved about your writing, Graham, is this sense that you have of writing about things that are about to come or could come in the future.
Has to be accidental, I think.
No, I've done so many times. But I was thinking about this song on the Fighter album, actually, Song Fighter, and you wrote these words: "Listen and you'll hear the sweetest sound ever heard in England. It's the Spirit blowing across the land. It's the voice of the one who calls his bride to come and be ready. Gentle as a dove, it comes with fire." It's amazing that you are actually singing about what God was about to do in England, and then it happened. And then also, you know, we worked on a song called "Rejoice, Rejoice," which was years before March for Jesus. But then you were writing one of the verses, "Now is the time for us to march upon the land."
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you about that. You know.
And at the time, I mean, there's a flow of inspiration when you hope when you're writing. So you know that which is sort of imagery, but maybe at the time you don't necessarily think that would actually happen physically. You know,
yes,
it is no open question. Certainly, the imagery of the church moving forward in that kind of purposeful way, like a march, was very much there. It was kind of in the atmosphere. You know, we as a generation we were sensing there was something stirring, but it wasn't easy. You know, this was, and that's what you know. We did a whole tour with called Fighter Tour with Clive Calver preaching. It was a long tour, yes, 55 dates I think it was.
Wow, amazing.
And I think so. Clive Calver was preaching, and I was doing the music. You know, and that song really was the key song. But we were plugging away at Mission, you know, and he'd begun to head up Youth for Christ. So it was people sort of, come on, what can we do? Yes. We weren't waiting for some great move around the corner, although you always hope there will be, but we were getting on with the job.
Yes.
But looking forward by faith, say, God, we really need something big to happen. So these songs came out of that kind of longing.
Yes.
But in the midst of doing what we could do.
Yes.
Getting on with the job.
But I love the role of the songwriter when they sing about something that's about to come. Do you know? And so, and Bill Johnson, he would speak about singing something before you actually see it.
Yeah.
Do you know? And so, you know, the songs that we write, you know, see faith rise. You know, for God to do that. You know, especially if you think about Shine Jesus Shine. You know, Flow River Flow. You were singing about things that weren't happening yet. but began to happen.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that, you know, I've been trying to encourage that in the songwriters to you know, to sing what they see.
Yes, I think that's the key, because you can't make it up. You can't have some sort of formula. If I sing about this, it'll happen. You know, it's got to come from that place of faith.
Yes.
And sometimes that spontaneity where you come up with something, you think, oh, where did that come from? But you just say, no, I'm going to stay with that, because, you know, I can't quite make sense of that yet.
Yes.
But it's a sense it's right, and of course that happens within community as well.
Yes, that's right.
You know, for me, that's always been very important, that if I come up with something, that I can get with some of our, you know, some of the leaders, some folks that I trust, hear from God, and I can sing the song or say, what do you think of that? You know, so there's a kind of a weighing and a testing, hopefully, that's going on.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, very good. The other thing I was thinking about, that God has used you in many times to write anthems for movements, you know, and particularly almost like themes.
Yeah.
So can you just tell me a bit more about that and how that, you know, how that works with you and your songwriting?
Yes, I mean that's happened within things like Spring Harvest, which in a sense was a movement.
It was.
Although it wasn't,
yeah,
you know,
incredible. And still is. Yeah.
Particularly, you know, from the very late 1979 it started, and still going today. Also, local church contexts that I've been in. Certainly, Spring Harvest. Several songs came out of the title of the year, because Spring Harvest, every year they'll choose a theme, and one year, you know, the theme was the humility of Christ, and they'd chosen this title, The Servant King. And when the circular came round to the songwriters saying, you know, we need some songs on this, and there was wads of notes, but looking for a starting point, for me that was it. You know, I thought it's all there in that servant and king sat side by side. If I can just unpack that, I think the song's in there. So, and the similar thing happens. I think it might have been the following year. The theme was "This is your God," and meekness and majesty, which is actually very similar to theme. You know, to the servant king. There was a year when the book of Philippians was the theme. So I sat down and read the book of Philippians 2 or 3 times, and just kind of read it prayerfully to see what came, what's touched me most, and the song "Knowing You," you know, came out of that. And certainly there was a season, I was based in a church in London called the Ichthus Christian Fellowship, led by Roger and Faith Forster. And I joined them in the mid-'80s, and at a time when they were just really beginning to expand and plant churches and so on. And they're very innovative and very, you know, and Roger's theology always was, you know, you learn theology in the morning, you go and do it in the afternoon. And they were very keen to take the gospel out in all sorts of ways. So if they were trying to plant a church in the area, then people would pray the streets, maybe in 2s or 3s, or even worship in a significant place or on a high street or something. So that atmosphere became, you know, I would be listening to the preaching and the teaching, and then I'll be processing it, and some of that would come out in songs.
Yes, very good.
And that was a very powerful dynamic, because you had a movement, a growing movement, you know, which was also inspiring lots of other churches. And the sort of prophetic teacher, you know, was unpacking, if you like, the detail, and as a songwriter, of course there are other people around as well, would help us to sing the message. So it's like the church is now singing who we are and what we're meant to do. And that's a very, very powerful thing.
You know, and I haven't seen that for a while.
Okay.
I don't think I've seen that for a while, you know, and I think this key, you know, we talk again about local church, but this key relationship between the worship songwriter and the pastor, and the songwriter writing, as you say, the message into song, and I would and I encourage songwriters to do that, you know, to really and to sing almost like what your pastor is preaching, you know, to really, this is what we learned last week, or this is what we've been learning. This is a song that almost backs that up or strengthens that. And then also, obviously, there's a phrase, isn't there, that when people leave church or leave the gathering, they're not singing what the preacher's speaking about. They're singing the songs.
They're not humming the sermon.
Yes. Graham, I just wanted to ask you about development in terms of hymn writing. You know, so our friend Matt Redman, you know, he would talk about the inhaling of the verse, of the truth of the verse, and the exhaling of worship in the chorus.
Yeah.
And for me that is really working. For me that is really working. You know, where sometimes a hymn actually can have almost like too much content or truth in it, and where you know, it's almost like you can't digest that amount. You just need that space to worship. So, you know, obviously, even songs like "How Great Thou Art," you know, where the verse is, "When I consider all," and it talks about who God is and what God has done, but then the response comes in the chorus, "Then sings my soul."
Yes, yeah.
So I feel that is really making the hymn connect with people and giving that release. But I just wondered if you had any thoughts on that.
Yes, definitely. I've certainly killed many a promising song by packing in too much content.
Nice.
You know, so like the chorus is another verse, you know, with more information. You know, so yeah, there is a wonderful balance there, and you can also think of it as revelation and response.
Excellent.
You know,
That's
the
a great
revelation, you're
phrase.
singing what, you know, the revealed truth that comes through the scriptures, through Christ and so on. And then you're responding to it. And it does help to, when you're writing a song, to get to a certain point and step back and say, you know, what's the balance between the revelation or the inhaling and the response or the exhaling, and make sure that balance is there.
A great tip, Graham. There's so many pearls of wisdom in that session. And I just want to encourage you to like, share, and subscribe to the Mission Worship channel. And there's many great series to come.